Hey there, friends of Wildland Fire. Darren Clable, State Fire Meteorologist for South Dakota here. Just going to present to you a little bit of a mid-August update on our overall wildfire potential for the last half of the month. The first half of the month, we saw cooler conditions, very, very wet across the state. This last half of the month, we're going to see a little bit of a change as kind of an upper level ridge sets up over the region. So I'll just kind of go through, some of the things that we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks, what we're expecting to see over the next few weeks, and how it might impact our overall fire potential for the next couple of weeks. We first need to look at what drives wildfire potential in South Dakota in August. For western South Dakota, inclusive of the Black Hills, we need below average precipitation through the summer months over the past 60 to 90 days from now. We need hot conditions to persist both in July and August, and then combine that with some drought conditions. For central South Dakota, it's kind of similar. Drought conditions help, but they need a very dry August to really dry out those grasses that are predominant across the central part of the state. And again, combine that with above average temperatures in July and August. Going to the eastern side of the state, historically speaking, there's very few large fires that actually occur. But when there are fires that are big, say maybe 100 or 150 acres, they occur in years just that have very, very low August precipitation. So let's take a first look at our departure from normal precipitation for the past 60 days. So we're looking at June 16th, kind of through present. The cool colors are showing above average precipitation. The warm colors are showing below average precipitation. This pocket, kind of in eastern South Dakota, is about the only area that's really been dry over the past 60 days. But if you look everywhere else, especially across, wide swaths of central and western South Dakota, we're above average precipitation everywhere. So again, looking at historically large fires, those occur in dry summers, and we just have not seen that. If we look at the departure from normal temperatures over that same time frame, again, to get big fires across central and western South Dakota, you want warmer than average temperatures through this time period. Again, this runs mid-June through present. It's been largely colder than average. So the combination of above average precipitation and below average temperatures has really led to not a lot of evapotranspiration out there. So basically we're putting more moisture into the soils and into the fuels than we're taking out of them. And so the fuels out there are pretty wet. Looking at our drought monitor, remember drought, or at least abnormally dry conditions, is kind of a precursor to large fire potential across central and western South Dakota, at least in the month of August. So this is our U.S. drought monitor from last week. And look at this. I mean, central and western South Dakota, pretty free of drought. Eastern South Dakota, I know there are some drought conditions out there, but guess what happened over the past 7 days, or at least since this was released? They got a lot of rain, actually. Northeastern South Dakota got like 2 to 5 inches of rain. Southeastern South Dakota got like 1 to 3 inches of rain. There's likely going to be some improvement in the drought monitor in those areas. So again, we're not seeing drought across western South Dakota, and that is a thing that we typically see on years when we get large fires. On the left, we have the veg dry, or the vegetation drought response index. Green colors are just showing unusually moist soil. It is unusually moist across much of central and western South Dakota. Again, eastern South Dakota are seeing some of the effects of that drought conditions. And when we combine the above average precipitation with below average temperatures, our EDI, or our evaporative demand drought index, is showing kind of a wetness category across central and western South Dakota. We're just not getting much moisture to get pulled out of the soils. We're getting more moisture being put into those soils and into those fuels. Here's some ERC charts from the SIGs over to the Black Hills. The top left chart is from the southern Black Hills, or southwest. The bottom right chart is from the northeastern Black Hills. The red line is the maximum period average ERC for both of those. The gray line is the average for that period of record, and the blue line is our current year. And you can see that currently our ERCs across the Black Hills are below average. So we're here, and then we're here. And of course, we're looking at the middle of August. Jesus, I forgot what month it was for a second. The thing I want to point out is that it takes time for our ERCs to really start to spike. If we look back a few weeks or a month and a half, and we kind of examine the situation that we were in going from June into July, we saw that the ERCs came up pretty dramatically in the Black Hills. right? They went from below average to at least above average. But it took like 2-3 weeks in order for that to happen. And that was actually a pretty strong increase. The ERC has this kind of time lag built into it. So it takes a while for our ERCs to start coming up to those elevated levels. So what I'm saying is that even if we're really dry, even if we're really hot for the next 2 weeks, it's still going to take time for the fuels in the landscape to respond to that. What I'm getting at is we at least got a couple of weeks in the Black Hills before we really need to start worrying about stuff. I have northwestern and southwestern South Dakota in here. Northwestern's top left. Southwestern South Dakota is bottom left. Really low ERCs in both places, definitely below average. And again, it takes a period of time. Even across southwestern South Dakota, which can get hot and dry, it takes a solid week and a half, 2 weeks for that ERC to really start bumping up. So once again, we're really wet right now, and it's going to take some time for us to dry out our fuels. Here's our 6 to 10 day temperature and precipitation outlook. Temperature on the left, the warm colors are showing above average temperatures. On the right, we have precipitation. The browns are showing good odds of below average precipitation. The greens, good odds of above average precipitation. And what you're seeing here is the evidence of an upper level ridge. And this upper level ridge kind of does one of these things. The jet stream kind of does one of those things. It's going to trap hot air down here. And the area west of the ridge, or this area, we're going to be in southwesterly flow, which is going to bring above average precipitation. So that's kind of what we're looking at over the next 6 to 10 days, depending on where this upper level ridge actually sets up. And this upper level ridge is likely to persist through the 8 to 14 day time frame as well. So we're still looking at above average temperatures. Yeah, it'll be warm, but there are some hints that we might retain some of that precipitation in the southwesterly flow aloft. It's kind of kicking out some monsoonal moisture, if you will, from the western United States. This is what I'm getting at. This is what we call a 500 millibar anomaly. So I'm looking up about 17,000 feet above sea level in the atmosphere. And this right here is showing the upper level ridge. The red colors are showing the anomalously high heights on the 500 millibar pressure surface. What I'm getting at is hot temperatures cause high heights at 500 millibars. This is just showing that this upper level ridge that we're getting is very anomalously warm for this time of the year, and we are going to likely have very, very persistently warm conditions across the central part of the United States. And I should point out that this map is valid, this anomaly map is valid for next Monday afternoon. So that's Tuesday the 22nd zero Zulu time, but it's actually the Monday afternoon of next Monday afternoon, the 21st, late afternoon our time. So big upper level ridge, retain some heat. And if I just look at the actual forecast for that same time again, here's our jet stream right here, and it's blowing kind of west to east. And you're seeing that South Dakota is under the southwesterly flow, while the center of the ridge is kind of right over Iowa. But it's that southwesterly component to our upper level flow that might give us an opportunity to retain a little bit of chances of precipitation in the forecast. If I extend this out farther, this is actually a 10-day forecast from the European model. And it's showing this ridge kind of just hanging out over the upper Midwest, western Great Plains. So we're likely to hang on to these warmer than average conditions. I'm going to toggle back. This ridge axis is here, and actually this ridge kind of builds to the west, which is somewhat unusual to get a ridge axis here. So there is some potential as we get later in the month that we might actually get more westerly or northwesterly flow, which might dry us out just a little bit as we get towards the last week of the month. So here's a total precipitation forecast from the European model. This goes again over the next 10 days, showing very little precipitation across South Dakota. Some of these higher amounts are really just thunderstorm driven. The model's picking up on a thunderstorm here or there, but not a lot of widespread precipitation across the state. If I look at the same exact thing from the GFS model, which is the American model, it's showing kind of more widespread precipitation, but really over 10 days, this isn't a lot. We're talking 0.2 of an inch, maybe up to 0.3 of an inch of precipitation. So not a lot, but again, convective in nature. These little thunderstorms start with precipitation and they'll kind of move on. So to summarize this, yes, we're going to be warm, or at least above average in terms of temperature the next 2 weeks. But that southwesterly flow, at least in the next 7 to 10 days, might give us some opportunity for showers and thunderstorms across western South Dakota, though they might be spotty. But I really want to stress the fact that we need at least 2 weeks of hot and dry weather to dry out our fuels enough for them to become receptive to large fires. In order for us to really push up the energy release component to a point where we can start to burn stuff out there, we've got to dry out, we've got to warm up. And of course, if that does happen over the next 2 weeks, then we need to look ahead to September, because maybe that'll mean the fire potential the first week of September will be on the increase. So in short, I don't have a lot of concern in terms of our overall wildfire potential right now for South Dakota for the next 2 weeks. Granted, any hot day, there's fuels out there. We could get a few small starts, but I just don't think there's a lack of fuel moisture out there that would give us big opportunity to get bigger fires. So let's just kind of sit, let's hold tight, let's see what the next 2 weeks bring, and then reassess conditions as we get into the month of September.